Other health detectives this. So, I'm going to call it a health detective podcast episode because we're getting to really introduce Dr. Lori Rose for the first time. We've had you come on before and we talked about health coach mastery. I'm already getting ahead of myself, but we've never gotten to really talk to you, what you're all about, and the things maybe that you've experienced health wise that led you into this path. So, again, we've done lives before. We'll kind of break down Dr. Lori's story today and then again, her background as well as the health coach mastery stuff. And if you're wondering what the heck that is, well, stay tuned till the end. Or if you're watching the recording, you could just skip if somehow you don't want to hear about Dr. Lori. But
Come
I think
on.
you're pretty damn cool. So I'd want to hear about you. Where can we begin? Because one thing I do not know about you, my friend, is did you deal with your own health challenges before getting into this? Or did you find the calling for coaching for a different reason?
It wasn't really health issues that brought me into coaching. I've just always, I think I came out of the womb a hippie nature nerd. So I was always outside playing in creeks and the mud and the wild outdoors. And so that sort of just led me on a path of getting academically into the sciences and ecology. And so it's just always been a passion and fascination for me. It was more of just, man, I really wanted to learn about 46 ATPs created from one glucose. Like it's that level of nerdiness
That's awesome.
from everything from the cells up to, ecosystems and biospheres. And so I've had a very broad education on all things natural that eventually led me to wanting to help other people feel better and embrace their passion in whatever it is.
Nice. Did you come out of the womb with the cool, cute, hippie tie-dye headband as well, or was that later?
Okay, so there was no headband, but there were pigtails.
Oh, you're funny. All right, cool. So,
I can
that's
prove
fine.
it.
There are people like that, right? It's actually really cool that you kind of had this passion, and it's a unique thing about you. I've said this before. It's really rare, in my opinion, at least, that you find someone that has such a deep understanding of like the human psyche and this obvious empathy and this desire to work with others and teach others, but then also super brilliant in the sciences. It's kind of like you sometimes get one or the other, or there's a clear weakness in one and we have to work on that. I'd be more like the sciences guy, right? And I have to work more on the people side, despite the podcast. I swear that's true. So it's actually really cool to get someone like you that has this natural affinity for these things. So then when did you decide, though, that this was going to be the career? Because I guess it's one thing to have these passions and these interests, but it's another thing to take the big leap and say, I'm going to go pursue this in some way. So what did that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm going to circle back to something you said before I answer that. I think I have the same journey of like, the sciences were the things that came natural, and the empathy and compassion and the people side of it. That was something I definitely trained
Okay.
myself to do. And so I guess there was like a mental healing journey from like adverse childhood experiences and having to learn emotional intelligence and coping skills and dealing with that. And so I didn't really in my head think of like, oh, a health issue. I was thinking more of like the physiological organ system, but that is part of my story of what led me to wanting to be able to help people heal, whether it was mental, emotional, or physical. And so I would say I started off, so my graduate school was in ecology and ecosystem restoration. So it was more of like I didn't want to be with people. I wanted to be out in nature and I wanted to be helping nature heal from what we did to it. Right? And then somewhere in grad school, actually I think it was probably pregnancy, right? Like having a child and getting a responsibility other than myself made me go internal and realize like I needed to heal all of those mental emotional issues. I started down that healing journey, and that's what led me into like, okay, I have this other body that I want to um feed organic homegrown food to, and then I want to address them holistically with herbs as medicine, and then like pursuing those paths eventually led me to like, okay, well, you can't stop there. Like this whole mental emotional journey is part of it too. And so I don't think I've ever put those two things together until you said what you said about the science came easily, the empathy part was something you had to learn. I'm like, I think I did that as well.
Well, you must have nailed it then. I mean, seriously, like commend you on the work, right? Because it's a personal development journey to get into this health stuff. I know that all too well. So I would never know that about you. Like it seems that natural. So that's amazing and really cool. So you decide to pursue this path, and then what is like kind of the first job post college, Lori, look like? Like what were you getting into after that?
Oh, so it was still it was still like very much focusing on the environment instead of people, right?
Mhm.
So I worked for the state environmental agency for several years, but and that was interesting. It was interesting to get a view of like the political and bureaucratic behind the scenes stuff
Mhm.
that goes into how businesses that impact our environment are managed and like the laws they have to follow and why those laws exist. And it was actually very, I guess, disheartening.
Mhm.
Like, it was like, oh, these environmental laws aren't really there with protecting the environment as the number one goal. Like that's what I'm like this idealist. I'm like, we're all here to help the world get more flowery. And so it definitely wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And it was also an hour drive into the city. And so, even though in my history, all of my training and education, I was like, I'm never going to be a teacher. I'm never going to be an instructor. That is not something I'm going to do and ever pursue. Well, it turns out I would do anything to not have to drive an hour from home and back every single day. And so there was an instructor position that opened up at the local community college, and it was teaching biology and
Mhm.
teaching nutrition. And I'm like, well, I can do that. But I guess I have to be a teacher. And luckily I did, because once I started teaching and educating, I think that's where it, the connection of my whole history, my journey, my education, how it can then be used to help others, right? To help
Mhm.
them either connect with nature or connect with themselves or connect with their health. And so luckily I was desperate and wanted to take a teacher job, because ever since then it's just been expanding my role as an educator and as a coach and helping people on their journeys.
That's amazing. You're a curveball. I can't figure you out. I love personality theory. This is a long shot here, especially since we're live, but I gotta ask. Any chance you know you're like Myers Briggs or Enneagram or something like that?
Okay, I take those all the time and then I can't remember what the answers are. I know there's like a INFJ, but I don't know if that's what I am, but that's what's popping up in my head. What do those stand
Okay.
for?
Well, I mean, yeah, we could do a whole podcast on that, right? It's hit or miss, right? The person either knows or they don't, so no worries. But we'll talk about that off air. We'll go into it. I can't figure you out, and I'm pretty quick with it. So, I love the curveball. I love the mystery. So this then evolved obviously into you. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? It's you're teaching in a different way now, but it became health coaching and holistic health coaching, and now, I mean, having this health coach mastery course with FDN. I think you have another thing at the college, if I'm not mistaken. So, when did we take the leap even further into that? Because that's a specific thing. There are plenty of people that really find that passion and enjoyment in teaching, which God bless you guys. I don't know if I'm as good as at that type of stuff. So, when did it evolve into the coaching side too?
Yeah, it was very much. I mean, I think we can all tell from what we've heard so far that there's a whole lot of serendipity and then fighting things that I've said, oh, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. So that's really funny. Um, but in teaching biology and nutrition, I got inspired to learn about organic gardening. So I would go take these organic gardening classes, and then I would incorporate what I learned into the plant chapters for my biology students, Well, then through learning more about gardening, I was like, well, I'm planting all these herbs to like attract butterflies and repel pests. But what do I do with them? So then I would take these herbal classes to learn what to do with the herbs. I'm like, wait a minute, like, because I was already off on conventional medicine. Like, I just didn't do conventional medicine. I didn't do standard American diet, but I didn't have any other tools in my
Mhm.
toolbox, right? And so as I started to dabble in learning about herbs, I was like, well, wait, like herbs can be medicine. And so it was very much the passionate student nerd in me that eventually led me to coaching, because I discovered online board certification courses that let me be a student forever. Because when I was in school, anytime someone asked, what do you want to do? Like when you grow up, I'm like, I just want to be a student. Like if I could get this PhD and this PhD and this PhD, not because I care about my letters, but because I just really love learning. And so then I took nutrition to this deeper level with these online board certifications, and I took herbalism to this deeper level. And serendipitously, there was a school that said it was a nutrition school, but it was not a nutrition school. It was a coaching school. And by coaching, we don't mean like the general health consultant, like creating protocols for people, that broad kind of use of the word coach. It was a
Mhm.
coaching school, like the very specific wellness coach board scope of practice of what a coach is. And so I didn't even know that's what I was signing up for. But as I'm learning all these behavior change strategies that help clients be more successful with their protocols and help them be better at goal setting and self motivating, I was like, oh, this is like the missing piece to the holistic field. Like, there are
Right.
plenty of nutritionists, there's plenty of herbalists, but all of them have experienced frustration and like, I know all this info and I'm telling my clients all these ways to help themselves and they're not doing it.
Mhm.
Why? And then we do that to ourselves, right? Like, I know
Yeah.
all these things I want to do and I'm not doing them. And so what I learned in that coaching course that I never realized that I was signing up for in the first place is that coaching is a powerful, powerful missing link when we want to help people create goals for themselves and pursue those goals in a successful way. And so I knew I had to incorporate that somehow in some way into how I was teaching others.
It's really cool because initially, and this was very arrogant, I assumed when I was younger, oh, I don't need a coach for stuff. And to be fair, the stuff that I was doing, in a sense, I didn't, because I was just so willing to make the changes instantly because there was so much pain, right? So it's that whole thing. It's like when the pain of change becomes less than the pain of whatever.
Yes.
You know the damn
The
quote, so I
pain of
don't completely
staying the
butcher the.
same. Yes.
Thank you, thank you. I was like, wow, that's not even close enough. But that was happening with my health, right? I always make this joke, but it's really not. If you could show me objectively why I needed to eat carrot sticks for every meal for the rest of my life, but the trade-off was I got my health conditions under control and I felt better, done. Sign me up for the carrot sticks. I hope they have like the yellow ones and the purple ones so I have a little variety, but I will do that for the rest of my freaking life if I have to. So, with that said, what I started to realize as I expanded my horizons past these health issues, because that was my entire focus of my life for like over a decade, I started to realize, oh, so every one of us, in my opinion, we have certain things that we might just be really damn good at. And for whatever reason, right? Whatever psychology might be behind that. Maybe you are amazing at managing your finances, but you're not so good at managing your diet. Maybe you're amazing at managing the diet, but savings your issue, whatever it is. So now I have coaches for different things, right? I love weight training. I love strength training. I know that it's not my top priority. I will prioritize the work like that I do before that. And then I'm realizing, okay, well, I'm not getting the consistent results that I want. So I have to have a coach for that. We go at 7 a.m., 3 days a week. It's just what it is, right? Otherwise, I just won't do it in the way that I need to do it. So I'd love to talk about this. I'd love to actually dive into this. Why do you think it's what I said about the pain of change versus pain of staying the same? Like, why do some people need coaches for some things and they'll just really need some support there, even if there's a ton of pain? And why do others just fly through effortlessly? Is there any like research behind this, or do you have any insight?
Yeah, so that's like the key question every health practitioner wants to know, right?
Sure,
Like,
sure.
why are some of my clients doing everything I tell them to do versus some of my clients not doing anything I tell them to do? And how do we motivate them to do that? Or
Mhm.
even with ourselves, why 5 years ago could I commit to these things that now I'm sitting on my couch like, I guess the pain of staying the same is
Sure.
not more than the pain of change. So I'm just gonna stay here where I am. I say that phrase in my head all the time to be like, yep, the pain is still not bad enough.
Okay.
So I think that has a lot to do with it is finding the why behind the motivation of eating the carrots, right? Finding the why behind the motivation of doing the strength training. And it has to be big enough to make the effort worth it. And that is absolutely the skill set of the health coach in the strict terms. A coach is someone who knows the questions to ask to help each different person figure out the motivation for the things that they're not doing that they want to do. It could be a pain thing, it could be a lack of a why thing, a disconnect between why do I need to do this and I don't want to do it. Why do I need to do it? But here's all the reasons why, and they just don't know it, right? It could be all sorts. It could be a lack of resources, it could be a lack of tools. There's all sorts of reasons why we don't do what we want to be doing. And the goal of a coach is to help someone go inside and just unfold all of that to motivate themselves to pursue what they want to pursue.
I'll use myself as an example here, and this might be a little funny, but it could probably help paint the picture too. So, one thing that I noticed with the discipline, with the health stuff, and actually former discipline to a degree with the weight training that actually fell off more or less, which was kind of strange. And I had to go into my own psyche and use the coaching skills that I have, which are actually fairly limited to be honest. But what I had was just asking some questions, kind of going deeper and deeper with this. And I love to believe, I love to believe that I am some intellectual who's so above his biology and all this stuff. And then I am humbled every single time. Because what I realized the correlation was is when I was super unhealthy, I'm no 10 out of 10 regardless, but I had severe cystic acne, right? That's not a particularly great time to be dating when you are dealing with something like that. It's not your most confident self. And so what I realized is, I have my wonderful fiance now. When we're connected, the motivation stops.
Yep.
And I'm like, Ev, you're not this intellectual that you think that you are. You are a primitive being that wants to procreate. And you got the mate. And so then you're like, okay, like I can almost like let these things go a little bit in a sense. So it's very odd. So my question with that, because I'm trying to be as transparent as possible, I'm getting somewhere with it, is something I'm still working on myself. How do you help an individual shift if, like, let's say they had these habits that they actually know are worthwhile. Weightlifting is totally worthwhile, but the main goal or main motivation prior to what I'm doing now, like it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like I don't have that same thing because Maddie loves me regardless, which is wonderful. So other than just trying to do it almost out of respect, right? You want to look half decent for your partner or be strong for your partner, especially if you're a male. How can we help clients shift to a new positive goal or new positive motivation?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think something, especially us like type A, uber motivated, like we're so used to being like, I'm going to do everything I want to do. And, we do have these images of ourselves as being super disciplined and super motivated. And then life has a funny way of being like, haha.
Check this out.
Yeah, we're not great at realizing life goes through stages, right? The week goes through stages, the year goes through stages. And so we expect ourselves to be the same person, motivated by the same thing, with the same goals and the same values from start to finish. And our culture kind of perpetuates this with the idea of like, have the same job from the time you're 17 to the time you retire. Like, you should be the same person all 50 of those years, and that's just not how humans are, and it's not how they work. So the first question I would ask a client is that a goal you still want to have for yourself? First of all. So I would even back up more and ask them if that's something they wanted now even though it was something they wanted in the past. And then I would ask questions to help them find a different why. Because obviously the pre why isn't there anymore.
Sure,
And
sure.
so we need to find other reasons. And this is another part of my health journey that I think is going to be very prevalent to female listeners, but everyone's going to relate to it. And it's the idea that weight equals health, right? And so there's definitely a weight loss part of my history, and like being the super motivated person I was excessively cutting calories and excessively exercising and not even doing it on purpose, right? But then I realized, oh, I'm overdoing it. And oh, weight isn't a metric of health. And oh, well, if weight's the only reason why I'm eating healthy, how do you then remotivate yourself when you really do let that go? Like if you let the scale go as a motivator of eating healthy and exercising, how do you then make that your goal still? So it's a
Right.
rediscovery of deeper values, of deeper whys, and helping them reconnect.
I love this so much because this is if you I I hope it's not just anecdotal in my experience. I would imagine when you're going deeper and deeper with these people, it is growth. It usually is for the positive because that's what I'm finding. So I don't have this nailed down perfectly yet at all. I'm just using myself as the example. But as I go deeper with this stuff, I said, okay, well, all right, maybe the strength now isn't to attract the mate, but what if, especially as a guy, I think ladies would understand this because you'd probably want this, but a guy, it's like a deep need in your soul to say, okay, well, if I'm with this woman and something happened that was bad, wouldn't I want to be able to do anything possible to defend her? Now those are very hypothetical situations, so it can sometimes be hard to be motivated by that, but that's coming from a positive place. It's coming from a place of love, not competing with other people necessarily, but doing it for the right reasons. I've also, the toughest one honestly has been the career stuff and money stuff, because it was like hungry as can be, let's go, let's make it. And then whatever my subjective line was, I must have crossed because I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I feel really comfortable with this. I'm safe. The bills are paid. You know, I can have a little fun. How do we go for the next level? Not because I just want to chase a BMW or something like that, but I know that there's a lesson here if I keep going higher. And so this is totally personal, but for me, I've developed, faith over the last couple of years. And so I almost look at it as like, another act of love. Well, if I have more income, can I do more good with this? And I actually make sure I do more good with it.
Right,
I
that's what
promise
I was
it's
gonna
budgeted
say,
out.
because there is a trend of like the more people make, the less they donate and the less they get. Like,
Yep,
and I was so shocked to learn that, but it's like a human tendency. It's so crazy. So that's good that you do
100%.
that.
So yeah, it's budgeted in, right? We got to do at least 10%, and Maddie and I are both on board with that. You just figure it out. And I I think this group would accept this completely, but it doesn't even matter. When I say you have faith, I don't care what your faith is. There is something magic about that. You do that without expectation of anything back. I promise you, you will be taken care of. So whatever. I'll get off my high horse with that, or soapbox with that rather. And but I'm finding these things, and what's really cool is like those deeper motivations. Man, they're hard as hell to get out, admittedly. But with each one, I become I won't say a better me, but a version of me that I like better and that I think is better received by the world. So maybe in a sense, it is a better version of me, right? So is that a common theme that you see? These deeper motivations help people kind of grow to the next level of consciousness, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're, in the coaching world, it's called hedonic versus eudaimonic values, like superficial values versus deep rooted spiritual values. And the thing with the hedonic values is those are the ones that fluctuate more over time as life stage changes and as, you know, um, marital status changes or job status or financial status, as things fluctuate, hedonic values and desires fluctuate. But these deeper, more eudaimonic spiritual values, they tend to stay the course. And even though I would say they tend to be harder to discover and harder to commit to because they tend to be counterculture, they do tend to be a more stable foundation to cling to when we have goals that we're like, oh, I'm just not committing like I want to commit. Well, are you spending time thinking about those deeper values? and if you're living into those values.
This is amazing, and I know that this interview is kind of taking a different turn, so I hope this is
Yeah,
okay
we're
because your
totally winging it.
passion.
I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, your passion just lights up when you talk about this stuff. So it's really cool. Why, the last question I'll have about this specifically, and it's more general, why do you think some people, and I don't mean this in a judgment way, I'm actually very curious. Why do you think some people kind of relive that same life for 20 years, right? It's really the same thing over and over again. I don't think I'm special. I don't think I'm particularly, gifted in any one area per se. And yet I can't even imagine my life without the growth. It would almost be boring. I would be very aware that it's stagnant. So, how do people get stuck in these same traps for 20, 30 years and they're really just reliving the same year every year? And how do we help them get out of it?
Yeah, and I can't answer that, but like for everyone, but I think a lot of it is a lack of belief, like a lack of confidence. And when I say belief, I mean belief that they can even change, belief that change is possible, belief that the effort to change is worth it. Without that, and that may be yours and I's secret. Like maybe we just have this overconfidence that is unjustified, but that helps us get get the hurdle to like, okay, we're moving, right? And that may be what's missing. Because without the belief that you can change, you will be stuck. You will stay the same because stagnancy is safe because you're used to whatever that pain is, you're used to it. Whatever that day is, you can expect it. There's no fear of the unknown. There's no fear of not knowing what to expect. And so I think that has a lot to do with it.
I love this. I always kind of compare what you just said to almost like personal development to me is like a hot air balloon. You have all these bags weighing you down, right? And if you want to go higher, you got to let go of one of those things. Now, here's the thing. Even if you're an adventurous person, going higher and higher is a little scary, but damn, that view is awesome, right? Like there's still a part of all of us that even if you're scared, you're like, this is pretty freaking sweet being able to see from 10,000 feet up, 15,000 feet up. And I love what you said about belief because I think that's the answer. And I don't, well, my family might say I have confidence that's unjustified. They might also use a different word that starts with an A. But for me, I think where it comes from is for those that listen to the podcast regularly, I have this very real experience. I don't even know if you know this, but at 18, and I'm not blaming my mental health issues, but because of a lot of the health things that I dealt with, I was abusing drugs. I got kicked out of school. I got arrested my senior year. I spent my 18th birthday on house arrest. And I was lucky enough to get around a friend group who got me into personal development. And a lot of those books that I was forced to read by them are all about self-belief. So when I jokingly say the confidence is justified, what I mean is I have seen firsthand that I could be literally on a trajectory that would wind me up in jail with serious crimes to a degree on my record to no. We're going to take a step back. We're going to review. We're going to implement new things. And holy cow, now look at what's happening on this path. So I think I just know that given enough time, given new information, and given a willingness to change habits, I don't believe there's anything I can't do other than maybe go like pro in the NFL if I start pursuing that at 28. I legitimately believe I can figure out just about anything. And it sounds like you have that confidence and belief too. You have that passion about you where I believe that you can go out and do just about anything that you want to go do, right? So where does that come from for you?
Yeah, and I think I have a correlational experience in my history of, I mentioned adverse childhood events, and I didn't have the emotional intelligence or the toolkits to know how to heal from those things, which inevitably led to a history with addiction. And it was a short-lived addiction, and luckily I never got caught doing anything, and it was a deep motivation to change, to not let my history become my children's history, to stop a cycle. But I also just, the universe sent someone into my life out of nowhere who also then sort of saved me and showed me solutions and showed me a way out. And it was through that change in addiction recovery that I learned these spiritual tools and learned how to do all these things. And that was an enormous source of my now belief and my now confidence, because yeah, it was a rock bottom situation to then come out of. So maybe if people are lacking that rock bottom recovery, that does sort of teach you that you're a phoenix and you can rise above, then where would that belief even come from, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I do think people exist that can learn through other people's mistakes. I'm not one of those people. Well, at least I wasn't then.
No, I need to mess it up first before.
So I do think that that belief is possible without having your own rock bottom and learning from others. But maybe that's another answer to this mystery that you're like, why are people saying the same? And maybe they just haven't had their revolution, right? They haven't had that
Yeah.
experience to give them that foundation of confidence.
Well, and I think even if people don't word it this way, this is why so many of us have these healing journeys and then get into it as work. The way I look at it is, yes, I acknowledge that I took responsibility for my life. That's good. I acknowledge that I work hard. That is good. However, you and I both just hit on key things. We both got a break from life or universe, God, whatever you want to call it. We got a break where some people or a person came into our life and said, hey, no. Wrong way, wrong way. Why don't you try this way and see if you like it a little better? You can always go back to that, but why don't you try this road and see if it's not better? And to me, with public speaking, podcasting, whatever it might be, I always say that I'm nothing without that initial luck. And so in these jobs, it's my hope to either be someone else's luck or to provide them with someone like you or another guest who can be their luck today, right? Now, what you do with that afterwards, that's on you, man. That's your responsibility. I can't change that, unfortunately. No one can. But everyone kind of deserves that break. Everyone deserves that introduction to a new way of thinking, or a hand grabbing them and saying, have you seen this road over here? Because your road sucks.
Yeah.
This one's paved, fresh gravel. It's all good over here, right? We got nice double yellow lines. Like, you want to check this out. Trust me. So that's amazing. I'd love to move on to health coach mastery, but I don't want to be the last one to get a say in this awesome back and forth. So do you have anything to add to that before we move on?
Well, and maybe it's sort of like it's a it's a side note of that, and it was something I was going to say earlier, but I think another like source of that lack of belief that your situation can change is a resource thing. Like, not everyone is fortunate enough or lucky enough to have the resources to change. And so that's a very valid reality for a lot of people as well. And so I think it's important when we're working with clients to remember all of those things, right? And those are the type of things we dig into. These are barriers to change, right? Like, what is your barrier? Well, I don't believe in myself. They're not going to come out and say that, right? They don't know that.
I think I suck. Yeah.
So it's this line of digging and questioning that we help people figure out, like, do you seriously lack the resources you need to change? Have you not had the luck handed to you to change your path? There are so many different barriers to change, and some are very superficial, but some are very deep like that. And all of them could be playing a little bit of a piece of the puzzle for even just one individual.
100%. Great final thoughts on that. With moving into health coach mastery, I know we wanted to talk about this today. So maybe if you're listening to this or watching this live or watching this after, you're thinking, damn, this woman's pretty darn cool. I wish I could listen to her more. You can, and it's all in health coach mastery. So can you talk to us about what you helped create for FDN? Because I'll separate this part really quick to preface. Most people at the time of recording this, yes, are coming to us for the main FDN course, which is this functional lab testing side. We're not really diving into coaching at all. We are just diving into, let's look at data, let's look at the labs. That's wonderful. You're going to run into clients who have issues with this, even when they get the labs in front of them. So we do have a separate program now called Health Coach Mastery. We don't talk about it nearly enough. But with that said, why did you want to help create that? What does that look like? And who does it serve in our community?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you said about like now that you've been given this way out, it's almost like a duty to
Mhm.
extend that to the rest of the world. And that's what this is for me, right? This is my giving back and pulling people up, whether it's the practitioner coming into health coach mastery and the information changes them and allows them to take their program to the next level, or it provides a toolkit for coaching that you didn't previously have as a practitioner and you use it for your clients, or both,
Mhm.
right? And usually it's going to be a little bit of both. You're going to be changed and you'll then use it to change for your clients. So, what it is a pathway of teaching these coaching skills and these behavior change skills and these motivational skills that you can then use with your clients. And you can choose to be just a coach, or you can add coaching to your functional practitioner training. It also includes, I am a science nerd, right? Like I've already exposed myself in that. And so there are functional and science-based trainings for ways to support the body and mitochondrial health, because if your body's not nourished, your brain's not going to work and then you're not going to be able to change. And there's some training on reading labs and how to use these with your clients, and on using herbs and how to use these to support your clients. And so you'll gain all those other tools as well. I do think the most magical part of the program, though, are the coaching tools you'll use that are just really not taught very many places or even talked about as a needed set of skills to have as a holistic practitioner. And all of
Sure.
the mental and emotional strategies and stress relief strategies that I've sort of alluded to in this talk, those are all embedded in the program. So every single step that I took to pull me out of that hole, which I didn't even know we were going to talk about here, are in
Surprise.
this course, right? Because they are the source of stress maintenance and mental and emotional wellness and emotional intelligence, because that is a cornerstone of health. And if you
Mhm.
don't have that, you can be eating perfectly and exercising perfectly and still be miserable, right? And so all of those are included in this program.
Awesome. And this can transform people's lives in ways that I don't think most of us can see until we're going through it. And this one, I don't know if I've ever shared this on this podcast. Not that it's not a secret, it's just not something that would normally come up. There was, well, I'll keep it somewhat private, actually, not for my sake, but for the person's sake. There was a person in my life that when the relationship got healthier and got reestablished, I didn't notice this until like 2 years afterwards, but I started like dating again. And there was like maybe a 4 or 5 year period where I didn't do that. I'm like, as especially as like a more, I am a nerd, but I also have this kind of like masculine side. I kind of go back and forth depending on the day. I want to believe so deeply that that has nothing to do with one another. It has something to do with one another, and I know that. And so there's no lab test for that, man. And I love the lab test. There's no supplement for it. There's no diet plan for it. That was something else. And that something else can lead to pretty beautiful things because of, especially the relationship I've developed with my fiance. I've noticed that having that love in my life, I can get away with more quote unquote cheating on my diet or forgetting some of the supplements or maybe staying up a little later than I would. I'm like, how the hell did that happen? How is it that I used to have to be 100% disciplined, 100% routine to get these results that I have right now? And I can go eat the chocolate, drink the milk, consume dairy, and there's really no notable consequence, both subjectively or objectively, from doing this stuff. It's like, wow. So I'd be really curious, maybe from Health Coach Mastery or maybe just from your coaching in general, what are, to the degree that you're able to share this, what are some really cool transformations that you've seen of maybe something that like the person would never even recognize that coaching is what could have led to this result in their life? Is there any stories or clients that come to mind when I say that?
I think it happens all of the time. Like what you just did in this interview, right? Just asking me an open ended question about my path and my journey. And it was like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. That's what coaching is, right? Coaching is open ended interviewing in a strategic way of your clients to help them have these like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. Oh my goodness. It happens every time. And the cool thing is, as a coach, the changes your clients go through will mirror back to you if you're open to it, right? And I think what happened between us on this interview is a perfect example of that, because we just kept like ping ponging off each other back and forth, like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I think it's because we're so used to these like open-ended coaching ways of speaking to other people now, and we're open to those epiphany type moments that they happen when you're open to them. And so I can't think of specifics, but I love that. I mean, this whole interview is an example of that happening.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to believe I'm decent at the interviewing side, so maybe I'm better at the coaching than I think. I almost gotta put my podcast interview hat on without the audience, right? And then maybe we'll get some good coaching stuff out of it. So as we kind of wrap up here, and holy crap, we got to do this again. If you're watching afterwards on YouTube, especially, please put us in put in the comments if you'd like us to talk to Dr. Lori again. We'd love to do this in the future. I think you and I could probably go for 5 hours if we had to, which beautiful for some, a nightmare for others, I'm sure, right? To each their own. If they pursue health coach mastery, and maybe we've piqued some interest there for people today, there actually is some lab side to it, specifically in the realm of blood work. There's a few mini courses in it. So what would that curriculum entail? I think I'd like to finish up on that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's 2 sort of paths that you take when you join the program. They're both required, but they can happen simultaneously. One are 4 recorded courses. And I kind of mentioned them. There's the coaching and mental and emotional wellness tools and skill sets. And this isn't just like, hey, help your clients with stress maintenance. It's like, here's the ABC 1, 2, 3 of how to walk your clients through learning a new tool skill set of stress maintenance. That's the first one. Then there's mitochondrial health. So it's all of the nutrients and herbs and supplements that you can use to help your clients support the mitochondrial health in their body, and the lifestyle things they might be doing to be decreasing their mitochondrial health and to coach them through improving those. Then there's the blood chemistry. So learning to look at labs, seeing what these lab patterns can indicate about some hidden sources or opportunities for healing, and lifestyle, food, diet, nutrition changes. And then you end up with the herbalism course, where you learn seriously everything about herbs, how they work in the body, how to do herbal formulas, how to make herbal medicine. It's so thorough and it's so fun and so awesome. So those are the recorded courses that you sort of self-pace your way through. At the same time, you get to meet live and do these live trainings with me and other graduates of the program in FDN to help you put these tools that you learn over here into actual practice. So you practice live on each other as students, and then you go through a series of training to fine tune your skills. And then you end by actually coaching clients, right? That you find and you bring into the program under the supervision of us. And so it's this amazing, like, textbook, here's what it is, live putting it into practice. So you leave this program being a confident coach, whether you just want to be a coach or you're already a practitioner, or you know you want to be a practitioner later and you want to use coaching to help those clients that are stuck.
Yeah. This is like your perfect baby. It's like a mix of that deep science that you were talking about, and then also this human side, right? The coaching side. And there is science behind coaching, to be clear, but you know what I mean by that. It's like the perfect Dr. Lori Rose mix. I love it. So with this kind of wrapping up here, where can people find you if they'd like to get connected? I should have asked you this beforehand. I'm sorry. Do you take clients? Is that something that people can find you
I
for?
do.
To
Yeah, I
utilize?
personally take clients too. So you can email me at loriroseholistic@gmail.com. You can also email me at lori.rose@afdnp.com.
Beautiful. We will have that in the show notes if you are listening on audio. I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. Excellent, excellent conversation. And I have a strong sense that people will want us maybe to do this again, or maybe they're just going to want you, and that's fine too. But either way, I'm sure we'll be doing this again. So
Teamwork,
thank you.
Evan.